All right. Here we are again.
All right, let's try it.
We tried to do one sideways. We're going to do one right side up this time. Just, spice things up.
Well, yeah.
Well, I'm Chris Johnson. I'm here with President David Snell of the Fuller Center for Housing.
I was illustrious in our first take.
Well, you were sideways. That's why. It threw me off. Normally we do a monthly update about this time every month, but we thought we'd sit down with David and get a little more perspective on what's been happening this year, what's going to be happening in the coming year, and kind of a State of the Union speech. So, as you might look at it, we'll be keeping an eye on comments and things like that to see how. See if anybody has anything we might be able to get to toward the end of the session here. And first of all, it was kind of quiet here last week. You were gone.
I
guess that's why. Where were you?
I was in El Salvador. Jeff Cardwell, who's a member of our board and just a great saint, has an annual leadership summit, he calls it, in El Salvador. And he takes a bunch of folks down there, many with resources, to try to familiarize them with the work that they're doing through their People Helping People network. And also, we've end up being featured because of our work is so powerful down there. So there were 26 of us in the group, and we traveled to our different work sites and visited some of the things they're doing. It was just a wonderful time.
Now, El Salvador has become just a tremendously busy place. In recent years.
It has. It's remarkable what's happened now.
But it's not our number one international park.
It is not.
And you visited that one as well.
I visited that one. In June, the Fuller Center of Armenia celebrated their 10th anniversary as a Fuller Center. And so my wife and I went over there and celebrated with them. Had a great time there as well. We got to meet the Catholicos of all Armenians, who is a pope, essentially, of the Armenian church. Got to spend a little time visiting with him. That was fascinating. Went out, we did work one day. We helped, we were part of a bucket brigade, moving cement from the front of the house. That's pretty
common in Armenia.
It's very common there. But we made a floor, so we were pretty proud of that. And then we went to the program. But the folks in Armenia have built about 650 houses in the 10 years that they've been with the Fuller Center. It's really a remarkable program. Great folks, very, very organized. Matter of fact, I often threaten that we should just close down the Americas operation and turn it all over to the Armenians. But they're wonderful people, and we were delighted to be able to celebrate with them.
And they probably have as passionate a group of folks who care about their homeland, the diaspora here in the United States, as anybody.
They do. All of our countries would be fortunate if they had half of what the Armenians had. During the genocide, just over 100 years ago, when the Turks were trying to take out the Armenians, many of them came to the United States. And they're hardworking, dedicated people, and they have made a lot of money. Many of them have. But they remember the homeland, and we send thousands of dollars through here from Armenian donors who want to support the work there.
Yeah. Now, of course, Armenia is kind of one of the first places we've dealt with that was it had a natural disaster in 1988, an earthquake, and yet here we are now dealing with natural disasters here in the States, in Puerto Rico. We come in well after the situation, but tell me a little bit about what's going on in Puerto Rico and Houston. It seems like they're just incredibly busy.
First, let me tell you this: the earthquake in Armenia was in 1988, and they were Soviet then, and the Soviets brought in hundreds of metal containers as temporary housing. They're called domiks, and there's people still living in those houses. So one of the missions of the Armenia Fuller Center is to get rid of the domiks. Now, as you mentioned, disasters keep happening. As a matter of fact, it was Hurricane Katrina that turned us into a house building organization. When we first set up the Fuller Center, it wasn't to build houses. It was to support Millard in his speaking engagements and travels. And Hurricane Katrina hit, and they came over from Shreveport and said, "We need your help." So we said, well, let's build some houses. And then the floodgates opened, and we heard from all around the country and all around the world. Now, since then, it's just been one after another. We were in Atlantic City after Superstorm Sandy blew through there. We were in Louisiana following the floods. We're still in Houston doing repair work there.
And hundreds of volunteers have gone.
Oh my goodness! Probably a couple thousand volunteers that have gone through their operation. And great support from the churches down there. One of our board members, Keith Uffman, is the pastor of Webster Presbyterian Church, and that church from the very beginning has hosted the volunteers every Sunday night when they arrive for an orientation session and a dinner. Houston's been a remarkable program. We're going to be there another couple of years, we figure. Now, we were announcing that we were done in Louisiana when the Carolinas got hit.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started work in New Bern, North Carolina, which was an area that was the hardest hit. In the meantime, of course, we had, I should take you to Nepal. We had an earthquake in Nepal, and there's a great story out of that. We had 11 houses standing about 30 miles from the epicenter of the earthquake, and we were using a block system, stabilized blocks, and the people really weren't very sure about that. They didn't like it. They liked the old-fashioned brick. Well, the brick houses fell down and ours didn't. We didn't even have a crack in any of our houses, and so now there's great interest in building with
and they're sharing. We're not just building houses, but we're telling other people how we did it.
We are. We've actually had some coursework. We've invited masons from the area around to come and learn how to build that.
It's amazing what you can do when you don't care who gets the credit.
It is. And you Puerto Rico you mentioned, and oh my goodness,
we got about 16 teams lined up right now. About half of them filled, half of them open.
Yeah,
already lined up. Going just in the next few months.
Yeah, it's going to be dramatic down there, and what we're doing, in Puerto Rico, it's part of the United States. It's a Commonwealth, but the conditions there are much more like El Salvador.
Yeah.
And the construction system is similar. So many of the houses down there in the area we're working in were built of block, and the houses actually stood, but they lost their roofs, they lost their doors, they lost their windows, and they were got flooded and filled with mud. So our work there has been cleaning out these houses, putting on new roofs, putting on new doors and windows. But it's been a tremendously successful program in terms of our volunteer participation.
We went without electricity for a long time, but we are good now. We
have electricity now, but that was kind of tough because it was hot. It was summer. There's no air conditioning, and water's hard to come by. And our volunteers were troopers. They were on a mission.
So now in Puerto Rico, they kind of get the best of both worlds. They get to help some people who really need a lot of help. Yet it's still a beautiful tropical paradise, and they've got electricity and water and everything they need.
That's right. We're working in a place called Maunabo, which is just minutes from the beach, so they can have a little getaway to the beach and get some work done at the same time.
Yeah, you look one way and there's still houses that are abandoned and damaged, and you look the other way and there's palm trees and beautiful beaches, and it looks like there's nothing wrong.
That's right. Yeah, it is. It's a damaged paradise.
Now, one of our busiest CPs, Covenant Partners, as we call them here in the United States, is in the area where Millard grew up, where he formed the man he is, the Southern gentleman, and the passionate, faithful guy he was. The subject of our kind of year-end campaign is called Wanted, and it came from a guy there whose house was dedicated in June after a one-week blitz build there. And he said, God didn't need anybody here, which took me back for a second. I'm like, whoa, where's he going? But he said he wanted everybody here. But that area right there, Lynette, Valley, Alabama, West Point, Georgia, it may be the perfect example of everything coming together. What's happening in that city that other people can emulate, especially our other Covenant partners?
Well, it is remarkable. They think, are they on their 43rd?
They finished their 42nd house.
Okay, so they're getting ready for the 43rd and 44th. Millard was born and raised in Lynette, and that's that area that you described, Valley, Lynette, and West Point, is the Chattahoochee Valley, Upper Chattahoochee, I guess, I don't know, but they call it the Chattahoochee, and we have some great leadership there. Kim Roberts is the executive director, but what she's managed to do, and what they as a group have managed to do, is engage the community. They have they never pay for a meal. The churches all volunteer to bring meals, Coca-Cola brings all of their water for them. There's a school there that moved in from Atlanta called Point University, and they've sent volunteers to support the work. And the city governments have been remarkable. The mayor's out there shoveling dirt and pounding nails, and
there's a house leader.
Well, he knows how to build.
Exactly.
So it has been what we like to think that we're going to do is engage the churches, be what's the word I'm looking for, bringing folks together, church, government, volunteers, donors, bring them all together for a common cause. And it's worked in the Chattahoochee Valley, and it's worked to the extent that they're one of our largest producers, and they continue to produce. And there's neighborhoods now that are Fuller Center neighborhoods. And it's a remarkable program, and one that does deserve to be emulated.
Well, one of the reasons I bring up is Chattahoochee Valley is a covenant partner to emulate is because we have a lot of covenant partners coming on board in the United States right now, not mentioned just a ton of interest of people saying, hey, I'm interested to see what you're doing. A lot of them are coming from other housing organizations or nonprofits. What is it about the Fuller Center that they say is attracting them? Why are they so interested?
I think that what drives that, we consider ourselves to be the old order habitat. We're doing things the old-fashioned ways. We are firmly committed to the foundational principles that Millard and Clarence came up with over 40 years ago now. And those are things like no interest. We don't charge interest to the poor because the Bible tells us not to. Very limited government engagement. We'll take land and we'll take structures, but we don't want the government to pay for the houses. They have their own work to do. And the money that they would give us is coerced money. It's tax money. It's not given money. And so we feel government has a role, but a very limited role. We are grassroots. This little building here in Americus is the international headquarters. And there's like 12 of us in here. There is very little between the Americas and the Covenant Partners. As a matter of fact, we think that we're a horizontal organization. And so there's very little oversight, not a lot of rules, no charges. We don't, if money comes in for a covenant partner, it goes to the covenant partner. We don't tax it.
No annual fees.
No annual fees.
Although we appreciate the tithe.
Tithing is one of the foundational principles, and
optional but encouraged.
Optional I think is a little bit too kind.
Oh, okay.
But strongly encouraged as a matter of righteousness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But if you want to be righteous.
If you want to be righteous. But that appeals to groups, and a lot of the groups that are coming over are smaller ones, and they find it more and more difficult to do everything that they're required to do in their other organization, and they like the fact that we're doing what we say. And another fact that's very important is that, as we like to say, we are unashamedly Christian and enthusiastically ecumenical, and most of these folks that are coming over have that. That appeals to them because that's the way they operate their own.
And we're ecumenical, not just from a faith standpoint, from a political standpoint. I've said it before. I've never been with an organization in this day and age that has so many people who were on the far left, the middle, the far right, and everywhere in between,
Yep.
all working on the same sites in France.
Right, and I've always said that when you're putting shingles on a roof in 110-degree weather, you don't really care whether you baptize or sprinkle. Those differences are less meaningful. But it's the same for this political thing. You don't care about those beliefs because we have a focus, and that is getting a family into a decent home.
Yeah, and you and I think just alike.
Oh, we do. There's no question about that. That's why we don't talk about it.
So moving on. Something we weren't expecting this year at all. We wound up with a famous author in our midst here.
We did.
Can you tell us about him and what this? In fact, you have a copy.
As a matter of fact, I
right
do.
here.
Yeah, right here.
And you know the guy.
I do. Great person. An inspiration to all. Now, I was really blessed. In the early days of the Fuller Center, I was headed up the international operations, all of the operations, and I traveled. I traveled a lot. So every time I'd go to a new country, I'd open a journal, just keep track of what was going on. And I did it for my grandkids, because I want them to know Grandpa actually accomplished something. So we got it out, and we're looking at it and thinking, you know what, this could make a book. So we spent time, Chris and I worked on this hard, took the whole thing, digitized it, and son of a gun, we have The Tattered Passport, Recollections and Observations from Journeys Around the World.
By David Snell.
By David Snell. Thank you. It's available at here at the Fuller Center. You can send an email and ask for it, or at Amazon.com.
Yeah.
And it's a fun read. This is not deep philosophy, but it is for the vicarious traveler. It's great stuff.
Now, all the millions go to you?
Oh, yes. Well, if we get to millions, we'll talk about the split.
Okay.
But at this point, all proceeds go to the Fuller Center.
Okay, well, we appreciate that. Give us some more places to go. All right, now coming up in 2019, one of the things we're going to mark is it'll be in February, 10 years since we lost Millard. And I know there was talk back then. It was such a shock.
Yeah.
No one knew what to do for 24 hours, and everything just froze. And I know you said some people, you had to have a debate. Should it end with Millard? Should it go on? Do you think Millard would think y'all made the right decision?
I know he would. He'd say, "Now, guys, if I'd been there, we could have done this and that and the other." But he's not, so he has to put up with what we've done. But I think he's smiling down because we've kept it alive. The dream lives. It's just the way he left it in terms of philosophy, but it's considerably larger.
Yeah, it is growing.
And
every year.
Every year. We don't aspire to be huge because it's dangerous when you get big. You start losing track of your basics. But we certainly want to do more and help more families have a decent home and help more organizations find ways to do the same thing. But I think he'd be pleased. But I can't believe it's 10 years that he's been gone.
It is amazing that we've grown to dozens more covenant partners across the United States and around the world, yet here we are in the same office with small staff. Really hasn't grown here.
We haven't grown. And I told Millard when we moved into this building that if we ever outgrew it, I was gone. But we're not outgrowing.
We're keeping people try to keep it in check.
We're trying to keep it in check.
Okay, right.
Yeah, that's fine. But we got room. We got room. There's space for more desks in this building, but we don't need more people. And we want to keep it that way because the less money we spend here, the more money we can use to build a house. So we I like to say we don't pay much, but we give excellent titles. And that's part of our mission, to control our expenses so that more houses can get built.
But we did finally get big enough this year that Charity Navigator, which is the premier charity evaluator, finally said, "Okay, we'll take a look at you," and we're glad they took a deep look at what we're doing.
Yeah, and they liked what they saw. We're top of the list. We can't get a higher rating than we've got right now from Charity Navigator.
Yeah, exceptional, I believe.
And I've had through the years more than once. I've had a donor call and say, why can't I find you on Charity Navigator? I've had them say, I'll donate when you're on Charity Navigator. So it's a blessing.
You call them back.
I kept the list. And we're also a platinum guide star
for transparency.
For transparency. So we are wide open, and they're liking what we're doing.
Well, I can understand why. Now, some of the things going on in 2019, what do we have to look forward to?
Well, we've got our bicycle adventure continues to grow.
With a twist.
Pardon me?
A twist in 2019. We have a new...
yeah, we do. Yeah, it's going to be kind of fun, too. The bicycle adventure has turned into one of our largest fundraisers. And it's phenomenal. And what's great about it is everybody has fun doing it, and we're raising money at the same time. But the past couple of years, we've had 2 cross-country rides because we had more people than we could accommodate. This year, we're going to do it a little differently. We're going to have a cross-country ride. It's going to go from Seattle to Savannah.
Washington, D.C.
Oh, it's going to Washington?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That was a year ago.
Don't go to Savannah and try. You're going to be very disappointed when you go to Welcome to Cyprus.
That's right. If you try to meet them there. But Savannah's a great place to spend time. To D.C. Washington to Washington. What am I thinking? But the second ride, we're going to have a second ride, and it's going to be Parks and Peaks. And it's going to start in Portland, Oregon, and it's going to make a giant loop through 11 states, 11 western states, and visiting national parks, state parks, be a beautiful trip, up and down over the mountains.
It will be scenic.
It will be scenic. It'll be great fun. So that we're anxious to see. There's been a lot of interest for that, and so we're anxious to see how.
And we'll still have our spring ride down the Natchez.
We'll have our spring ride down the Natchez Trace, and then we got a couple other things that we're going to surprise people with that are going to be kind of fun for a little bit later in the year.
So we can go to FullerCenterBikeAdventure.org if you want to learn more about that.
That's right.
Registration is open now.
It is open. Yeah, we're taking folks.
Other things going on in 2019. A legacy bill.
Yeah.
A 10th anniversary.
10th anniversary. Actually, we started this in the year before Miller died, in 2008, and I think we called it the Miller and Linda Bill. And it was in El Salvador. This nativity set was given to me there, and it's just lovely. And it was the last build Millard was on before he died. But yeah, it's so we're considering this our 10th anniversary of the Millard Fuller Legacy Build, and it's going to be in Beckley, West Virginia, the week of September 16th. And it's going to be great fun. They're going to build 2 houses, and they're absolutely committed to building and finishing 2 houses. We got wonderful folks up there, and they're putting things together. Now, Beckley's a little bit off the beaten track, but that shouldn't keep anybody from wanting to be there.
It might be a good reason to be there.
Actually, you know what?
Get away from it all.
I'm hoping they don't have cell phones, but they probably do. But yeah, that'll be a big deal. That'll be great fun. And then our Global Builders Program is continuing to grow. We thought we'd break 60 this year, but we had a couple groups fall out. We'll have 57 at least, maybe another 1 or 2, which is pretty good. And that's also one of our largest fundraisers. The way it works is really quite elegant. You pay a fee to go on the trip, and I'll just throw the number $1,000, which is probably fair. Half of that money goes to your fare, to your housing, lodging, transport while you're on the ground. Once you get there, everything is taken care of. But the other half goes to buy materials for a house. So a group of 10, that's $5,000, and a group of 10 could fund the house. So it's a great way for our covenant partners to have some additional resource. We're talking to Nicaragua. That's been a very popular site. We had to shut down there because of the civil unrest, but they're hoping things are quieting down, and they're hoping that by late winter or spring we can maybe start sending groups to Nicaragua again.
That'd be great.
Yep.
It was one of our most popular.
It was a great place.
It's a shame what happened.
It is a shame. Yep.
And we would have been over 60.
And we would have been, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, David, I sure appreciate it. Is there anything else you'd like to add? I know that this is kind of our campaign fundraising home stretch here before the end of the year, and it helps us plan for 2019. So, is there anything you want to encourage people to go to FullerCenter.org and do?
There's a button there that says donate. Don't hesitate. We'll make it as easy as we can. All kidding aside, this is a very important time of the year because people are in a giving mood, and it's great. This is a great place to give because you know that your money's going to go where it ought to go. And that families will benefit from that gift. I'll just give you a quick example. In El Salvador, a lot of the building we're doing is with a group called New Story Charity. They're funding this. But the fact is that they fund, say the house is $6,000 to build, they'll give us $5,000, and we have to raise $5,000. So that's not a bad deal. But what that means is that a gift of $1,000 is leveraged 5 times over. So it's a huge way to for $1,000 a family you build a house. It's essentially the way it works because of that other funding.
And your donations are recycled.
And they're recycled, and they're having good results down there. These the houses aren't given. The families help work on them, and then they pay for them on terms they can afford over time with no interest charged and no profit made. And the result for many families is that they are ending up buying a house or owning a house that is costing them less monthly than they were paying in rent before.
Now that program though, that pay it forward, your money stays in the local community to help others get the same hand up. We've seen that work in a lot of places. The one place they said that would never work is Haiti. I mean, there's just too many handouts over the decades, and it wouldn't work there.
Yep.
Is that? True.
And son of a gun, last summer we finished the first house in Haiti built for entirely from homeowner payments funding the local.
And it continues.
And it continues. So and to me that's one of the most remarkable developments we've seen, because they did tell us in Haiti, can't make it work. As a matter of fact, other organizations have pulled out because they couldn't make it work. By golly, it's working.
All right. Well, sustainable charity, enlightened charity.
Enlightened charity,
Makes
yeah.
sense.
Because those payments, that's what we were saying, they stay in the community. They build more houses. And El Salvador now is racking up a huge a bank account that they can use to continue the building in these neighborhoods.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yep.
All right. Well, David, it's been a great 2018.
It's been a great year.
It's going to be a greater 2019.
I do believe it will.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you now.